Hello and welcome to this week's Hippie Hyena. So this week we're going to take a look at a new political party that's popped up in the UK, getting ready for it to approach electoral obscurity. There is no way this party is going to last very long because it's kind of a one-note, one-hit party and they're all idiots. So basically we take a look at it now or it will disappear forever, which is good. Let's see what they are building their platform around, shall we?
Last Monday, the government gave you permission to sit on a bench in a park again and to meet in groups of 6.
So, yeah, for our American viewers, those of you who don't know, he's standing in front of a Churchill memorial, which is kind of the British equivalent of, like, maybe a Confederate flag, or sort of just maybe an American flag in the way that Trump was sort of kissing it and stuff. British people tend not to go in for those sort of, like, overly vulgar displays of nationalism. Churchill has become a symbol of that for the right wing. I guess because in their minds it's sort of the last time we had a proper kind of strongman leader in the UK. But it's kind of weird because Churchill was in charge when we were fighting the Nazis. So he was kind of literally Antifa in some ways, although in other ways he was quite a racist himself. It's complicated. It's a complicated situation, as history usually is. But Churchill has become a symbol, and that symbol is usually one that is spread about by our right wing. Sort of like Pepe online. But the reason this idiot is standing in front of the Churchill Memorial is because he's trying to adopt some of that strength for himself, that perceived strength. He's trying to adopt and kind of imbibe his message with a sense of patriotic history and the strength of Churchill as an avatar for English pride. Basically, it's really cringe. It's really cringe. And it's cringe in a way that British people will see this and be like, oh my god, really? Really? In front of the Churchill Memorial? Oh, so cringe. And that might go over my American viewers' heads, so I'm just explaining that. He's wanting it to make him look strong, but what in fact the effect is it makes him look incredibly weak and sort of self-insecure.
Are you grateful yet?
No.
Last Monday, the government gave you permission to go outside and play sports with your family and friends again. Are you grateful yet?
No.
Listen to that really half-hearted sort of, no. He's attempting to do that sort of, rousing speech that you might see. Like you can imagine, like maybe a Trump trying to pull off. He would say, "This happened. Are you with me?" And everyone would be like, "Yeah." And he'd be like, "This happened. Are you with me?" "Yeah." Like this. And there's two things that are funny about that. The first thing is that just doesn't really work with British culture. We don't like audience participation. If someone's talking to us, we'll listen, maybe, but we don't want to have to say anything back. And so we're just not used to that sort of outward display of herd mentality, I suppose. It seems very kind of, just un-British, really. And he's attempting to sort of get that. Or maybe he wasn't attempting. Maybe it was attempting to do that. Maybe it was a sort of mistake and people thought he was wanting that and started doing it. But it's it's very funny, this little no. And you can also see, like, how few people are actually listening to him here. I'd imagine that there's probably about the same amount of people on his side of the sort of stage, even though it's not a stage, as are in the audience area. Probably very few people, which gives you a sort of sense of how popular this party is, which is to say, it's not popular at all. It's pretty depressing. But also, in addition to this, just as a sort of rhetorical idea, don't get your audience to chant no. You'll notice when someone like Trump would do it, because he's a bit more like practiced or competent in this small way of like rousing crowds, although obviously in pretty much every other way he's incompetent. He would get the audience to be chanting yes to things. Yes, because yes, it feels powerful, feels like you're going forward, feels like you're doing something. You get your audience to continuously say no, 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 no. And then you're like, so should we do this thing that you actually want them to do? And they'll be like, no, because they've got so used to just chanting no. It's like basic rhetorical techniques. He should have like people behind him telling him, don't get your audience to chant no to you. It's generally a bad idea.
If everything goes very well, soon the government will allow you and your friends to sit indoors and have a meal in a cafe or a pub or a restaurant. Are you grateful yet? No. And if your papers are in order, either this year or the next, the government will give you permission to travel with your family again, or go to the theatre or a sports stadium.
And if you've been paying attention to what he's saying, which I could entirely understand if you weren't, because he's kind of a charisma vacuum, and it's kind of difficult to pay attention to what he's saying in a way, because it kind of has that. It's like a black hole of boring, you know. It kind of sucks attention, and even still, you can't like pay attention to it. But if you've somehow managed to overcome that hurdle and are listening to what he's saying, you've probably picked up on the fact that this guy and the surrounding party, known as the Reclaim Party, are COVID deniers, which is not a very popular position in the UK. Probably largely not a very popular position anywhere, considering there's been a lot of dead people. And a lot of people have died in London, you know, specifically. Britain hasn't done that much better than America on this, and largely because our government is they are total crap. We've basically got our version of Trump still in power at the moment. We haven't got an election coming up to kick him out for quite some time. And our opposition party has totally gone to shit. So we're in trouble. But yeah, regardless, even though our government has put in incredibly paltry procedures to protect us from COVID, for these idiots, that's too much. That's too much. And here they are just whining and bitching about, oh, I want to meet my friend in the park. It's like, for God's sake, grow up. Like, he's standing in front of a statue of Churchill, who he's trying to sort of evoke. But the fact is that when Churchill was in power, we went through the f***ing Blitz. You know, well, not we, but our ancestors went through the Blitz. Our relatives went through the Blitz. When, you know, we had to turn off all our lights so the Germans didn't know where to bomb. You know, that was like archetypal sticking together and getting through this together as a group. And here are these fucking scabs trying to ruin everything for anyone just because of like basically a minor inconvenience. A minor inconvenience. What absolutely pathetic human beings they are. They'd be the first one being like, oh, I don't care if the Nazis want to bomb us. I'm just going to turn on my lights because I like it to be light and my eyes are too weak. That's how they sound. It's like, oh, I don't want to wear a mask. Oh, I want to go and mingle with my friends because I miss them. It's like, oh, Jesus, grow up. Where's your stiff upper lip? You know, that's something that is supposed to be central to the idea of what it means to be British. And here are these people who are apparently patriots who are just like bringing shame on us, man. Toughen up.
Are you grateful yet? A year ago, we lent that government our liberty for 3 short weeks to flatten the curve. And now, a year on, they refuse to give back what never belonged to them in the first place. There is no reason we are being kept in lockdown.
Except, of course, you know, the goddamn coronavirus. What is wrong with these people? Like, you know, I would really like to go outside too, you know? I want to go to a nice forest and smoke a bong with my friends, maybe some shrooms and chill out in nature and, you know, live free and wild and or do all the stuff that I want to go to psytrance parties and, you know, dance next to some guy with dreads and, you know, get off my tits. But I can't do that. Do you think I want to do that? We all want to do that, but what we're not doing is just pretending that reality isn't real because we want to do something. It's like, for God's sake, you can't just be like, oh, reality is inconvenient. Okay, I'm going to just jump into a completely imaginary world where gumdrops fall from the skies and weed grows from every crack in the pavement. We're in the middle of a goddamn pandemic, and because we didn't do strict enough lockdowns for long enough earlier on, like most most places we're suffering because of that, and so we're still in lockdown now. That's why. That's the reason why. How are you so unbelievably stupid that you are putting forward this as an idea? The idea that there's no reason for lockdowns. My God.
We have been manipulated, frightened, and outright lied to by this government.
True. They've been absolutely lying to you continuously, downplaying the dangers of the pandemic because they want to keep businesses open, because they don't give a shit if you die or not. That's the only bit of truth that you've said. They've also frightened you about immigrants, which is a separate issue to this COVID idiocy, this Covidiocy. You know, our government has handled this incredibly badly, as they've pretty much handled everything incredibly badly. Just the only thing that they've sort of done well, which isn't our government doing it, it's our NHS, because we've got a great National Health Service, which is awesome, and everyone should get one, and fund it properly would be nice. Our vaccination rollout has been pretty damn good. I've already had my first one, and I'm waiting for my second one, and I'm not even in I'm young, healthy, and not in a sort of frontline job, so it's pretty awesome, which has happened basically in spite of our government, not because of it. Our government has handled this incredibly badly because it's not taken it as seriously as they should, and what this idiotic party is wanting to do is to get them to take it even less seriously than that. It's absolutely mind-bending. It's sort of like if you imagine in America that when Trump was basically downplaying the virus and not doing what he should be doing to protect his citizens from getting sick and dying, if another party popped up to say that what their platform was is that Trump was doing too much to stop it and they wanted him to do even less. It's absolutely mind-bending.
Who, instead of trusting us to get on with our lives, are now flirting with even more authoritarian measures. The very fascistic ideas that Winston Churchill stood against and a generation of Brits fought and died for.
I bet he was pretty proud of remembering to sort of point to the statue behind him. He seemed pretty smug about it, even though it was very, very cringy and embarrassing. The thing is, I don't know what Churchill would have made of these people. He's quite a complicated person, but my guess would be that he would have called them whiny crybabies, is my guess, and would have told them to toughen up and do their part to help the country. That's probably what he would have said. He probably would have been absolutely stunned, would be my guess. Stunned that there'd be a group of people who, after their ancestors had gone through the Blitz and suffered through incredible inconvenience and death on a scale that we can barely imagine, sort of rationing and the lights out and the constant fear of air raids and all kinds of horrible stuff, having to send their children away to the countryside to avoid getting bombed, all kinds of stuff, that these absolute wet blankets, these snowflakes, these fragile snowflakes, be whining because they have to stay in and watch Netflix instead of going to the pub. It's like, for God's sake, really? That's my guess. My guess is Churchill would think that these people were the absolute joke that they are.
They have consistently refused to rule out so-called vaccine passports or freedom passes. Yeah, right.
Ooh, I wonder if that "yeah, right" was off the cuff or whether it was written down on that bit of paper. Something tells me about his tone that it was probably written down on that bit of paper, trying to make him sort of seem more human and relatable, perhaps. Oh, it was just a little nugget of unfiltered cringe.
The Nuremberg Code dictates that no citizen can be coerced into a medical intervention. But that is what our fear-mongering government have done relentlessly for the last months. Take the jab, have your freedom back. No, enough is enough.
So they're anti-vaxxers too. You know, it just goes to show that this kind of attitude, this idiocy, is sort of universal across the right, across the world. You know, what they want to do is to do whatever the hell they like and sod everyone else, and they just want it to be litigated so they won't have any consequences for themselves when they do antisocial, idiotic behaviours like this. The thing is that the vaccines are something to be done for the good of the the wider public. And if you don't do it, if you're refusing to have the vaccine, well, that means you're dangerous to people because you could be spreading the virus around. You could be a carrier and going around spreading it, and people aren't going to want that around. It's not like infringing on your rights. You know, if, for example, I got a machine gun and I insisted on carrying it around with me and just randomly shooting around into crowds wherever I went, people of the public are going to try and stop me from doing that. And that wouldn't be an infringement of my rights. That would be the correct action of the police or the public or whoever to try and get me to stop doing that. The same thing is if you're going around refusing to wear a mask, refusing to quarantine, refusing to vaccinate, you're going around coughing on people and God knows what else, then you should be probably prevented from doing that. And that's not infringing your rights, that's protecting the rights of everyone else around you. It's like that famous quote, "Your liberty to swing your fist ends where my nose begins." It means you're free to do what you want up until it infringes the rights of others. And stopping you from infringing the rights of others is not infringing on your rights. You don't have the right to mess with other people like that. You just don't. I'm sorry. And if you go around flaunting that, you're gonna face consequences. And that's not cancel culture. That's not a draconian regime. It's been like that forever. If you do antisocial and up things the society doesn't want you to do, they're gonna either kick you out or punish you in some way. It's been like that since we lived in caves, since we had fire, since we first banded together to do anything, you know. It's like that amongst monkey civilizations, if you can call them civilizations. It's like that amongst dog packs. It's like that. It's a universal law everywhere. You act antisocial, you get kicked out. You can't litigate against that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you've enjoyed this little sojourn into my neck of the woods and getting to see, as a sort of anthropological study perhaps, what kind of idiocy is happening in Britain, which is similar to what's happening in America and the rest of the world, I'd imagine. Although maybe, or I'd like to think in sort of smaller numbers, but maybe not, who knows. I mean, Brexit was a shit show. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next week. Bye.